In the southwestern Pacific Ocean lies a country named New Zealand, located approximately 2,000 kilometers east of Australia. It is renowned as the second most peaceful country in the world. New Zealand is globally celebrated for its towering mountains, breathtaking scenery, and high-quality organic food. Many of you may know that the iconic movie The Lord of the Rings was filmed amidst the stunning landscapes of New Zealand. The country's remarkable natural beauty is deeply intertwined with its pastoral heritage. Animal husbandry plays a vital role in New Zealand's economy. Renowned for its dairy and meat production, the country is home to large numbers of cattle and sheep, making them one of its major exports. Currently, New Zealand has approximately 27 million sheep, while its human population is only 5.1 million. New Zealand primarily consists of two main islands, the North Island and the South Island, along with numerous smaller islands. The South Island and the North Island rank as the 12th and 14th largest islands in the world, respectively. The total area of New Zealand is about 268,021 square kilometers. In comparison, while New Zealand is almost twice the size of Bangladesh, its population is significantly smaller. New Zealand's population is about 35 times smaller than that of Bangladesh. Interestingly, New Zealand enjoys a temperate climate, similar to developed countries like the UK, Ireland, and Japan. This type of climate is common in many densely populated regions of the world, such as Western Europe, Vancouver, Mexico City, Johannesburg, and the habitable parts of southeastern Australia. However, New Zealand stands out as a notable exception. Despite its favorable climate, vast land area, and advanced standard of living, it has a relatively small population. Surprisingly, nearly 80% of New Zealand's total land area is uninhabited. But why is this the case? What makes 80% of New Zealand empty? Let's find out. If you look at a map of New Zealand, you will see that the country is made up of two main islands, and there is a stark contrast between them. More than 3/4 of New Zealand's population resides on the North Island, while less than a quarter is spread across the larger South Island. The North Island is relatively densely populated, with nearly half of its population concentrated in the Auckland area alone. Auckland, New Zealand's largest city, accounts for 37% of the country's total population, a figure that is projected to reach 2 million soon. In addition to Auckland, 3 of New Zealand's 4 largest cities are located on the North Island. In contrast, the largest city on the South Island is Christchurch, situated on the flat Canterbury Plains. Outside of Christchurch, the South Island has an extremely low population density of about 5.4 people per square kilometre. This disparity can be attributed to New Zealand's isolated geographical location. The country is far from major continents like Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. Its closest neighbour, Australia, is nearly 2,000 kilometres away across the Tasman Sea. Beyond Australia, New Zealand is surrounded by thousands of kilometres of ocean. Even in today's connected world, New Zealand's remoteness makes it time-consuming to reach by air or sea, further emphasizing its unique isolation. The first human settlers in New Zealand were the Maori people. According to Maori oral tradition, Kupe, a legendary Polynesian navigator, is believed to have been the first to discover New Zealand around 758 AD. Kupe, a fisherman, traveled in large canoes in search of food and new lands. One day, he came across a mountainous island which he named Aotearoa, now known as New Zealand. The land was abundant in seafood, fruits, and natural resources, with no evidence of other human inhabitants. It was an ideal place for Kupe and his community. After exploring the land, Kupe returned to his homeland to share news of this new land, prompting others to migrate. The Maori people began to arrive in New Zealand in large canoes from the Cook Islands, Society Islands, and Hawaiian Islands. Over time, the Maori established settlements and lived peacefully in New Zealand. Isolated from the rest of the world, they had no enemies and thrived in their environment. This peaceful existence continued until the 17th century, when Western nations began exploring and expanding their influence. In 1642, Dutch explorer Abel Tasman became the first European to encounter New Zealand. However, after a violent confrontation with the local Maori, he was forced to retreat. Later, in 1769, British explorer Captain James Cook arrived in New Zealand. Despite initial clashes with the Maori, Cook managed to chart a detailed map of New Zealand, paving the way for future European exploration and settlement. In the mid-18th century, the British began arriving in New Zealand and sought to establish treaties with the Maori people. They offered opportunities for trade and economic benefits, and soon started building ports in the region. By the mid-19th century, the British had taken full control of New Zealand. In 1840, the Maori population was estimated to be around 200,000. However, over the next century, this number dramatically declined to just 40,000. One significant factor behind this decline was the introduction of new diseases by Europeans. These diseases were unfamiliar to the Maori, and they had no natural immunity, leading to widespread fatalities. Additionally, violent conflicts over land ownership, known as the New Zealand Wars, began in 1845 and continued for 40 years. These conflicts resulted in the loss of many Maori lives. By 1881, after substantial bloodshed, the British realized that sustainable development in the region was impossible without involving the local population. As a result, the British government began integrating the Maori into the electoral process and including them in various development projects. Despite these efforts, most development at the time occurred in the northern parts of New Zealand. The southern region remained largely uninhabited and underdeveloped due to its challenging geography. The South Island, with its high mountains, infertile land, and extreme rainfall patterns, was unsuitable for large-scale agriculture or mining. Even today, much of New Zealand's southern land remains sparsely populated and underutilized, as its terrain and climate pose significant challenges to human settlement and agricultural activities. Only 2% of New Zealand's total land area is suitable for agriculture, a figure that is lower than in many desert countries. However, the country's favorable climate, abundant water resources, and vast grasslands make it ideal for livestock farming, which forms the backbone of its economy. New Zealand has a significant population of cattle and sheep, with sheep outnumbering people by a large margin. Sheep farming has earned New Zealand a prominent position in the global market, as it is currently the world's largest exporter of sheep products, including wool and mutton. Interestingly, sheep products are not the country's largest export. With more than twice the number of cows as people, New Zealand's dairy products hold the top spot as its leading export. Despite having only 2% of its land suitable for crop farming, 55% of New Zealand's land is dedicated to agriculture. However, this agricultural land is predominantly used for raising livestock rather than cultivating crops. Livestock farming has been the cornerstone of New Zealand's economy for the past 200 years and is expected to remain so in the future. Given the country's geographical location and natural resources, it is the most viable export industry. This focus on animal husbandry has resulted in much of New Zealand's land being allocated for livestock farming, which in turn has limited areas available for human habitation. Like other developed countries such as Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Canada, New Zealand is experiencing a declining birth rate. In 2010, the country had a birth rate of 2.1 children per woman, which is the level required to maintain a stable population. By 2022, this rate had dropped to 1.8. Mass immigration to New Zealand began in the 1840s under British influence, leading to population growth over time. However, immigration policies initially restricted entry to whites. These restrictions were relaxed after World War II, allowing for greater diversity among immigrants. In 2006, New Zealand's population reached 4 million and was projected to grow to 5 million by 2020. According to a 2008 estimate by the New Zealand government, approximately 45,000 new immigrants arrive each year. Between 2013 and 2018, about 270,000 immigrants settled in the country. While the United Kingdom remains the largest source of immigrants historically, most new immigrants now come from Asia, particularly from countries like China, India, and the Philippines. 27% of New Zealand's population was born overseas, making it one of the highest rates in the world. Much of the country's vast natural landscape is unsuitable for habitation, resulting in a significant concentration of people in urban areas. This growing urban population has led to a rapid increase in housing demand, causing a housing shortage. However, the government has initiated various projects to address these challenges, aiming to develop a more comfortable and sustainable housing system for its residents.